Yo, Mana Squad, if you like any of the cards you see in today's video, make sure to hit up the affiliate link down below to TCG Player. You can help look up some of your local game stores in the process and help show the channel some love. And you know you got to look good while you play in order to play good. So make sure you hit up our link to Into the AM as well. We have the discount code down in the description below. Look, you got to listen to Kenneth the Heathen, and he always says something about dripping in space and screaming. We don't know what it means, but do what the man says. And last but not least, hit up Heavy Play. Heavy Play is going to have some of the nicest playmats and deck boxes out there. Their magnet system between their deck box and dice trays and playmat is amazing, especially if you're playing at like bars, restaurants, stuff like that. You got to get up and move. There is no better way to keep all your stuff together, and you can show the channel some love in the process. Stay petty.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Command Center, where we like to put our favorite commander, maybe even yours, front and center. And you know we can't do it unless we play those three diabolical letters, EDH. What does it stand for today, Hadoken?
Y'all know what it stands for. It stands for evil doesn't hesitate. That's right. If you're not first, you strike first, you hit first, and you ask questions never. That's right. If you're not first, you ask, or you sitting on it. That's what we talking about. Actually, I don't honestly know what we talking about. What we talking about, Derek?
Said, I think that might be the first time, and I think that we've had that EDH before. I think we've gotten to the point where we've finally, for the first time in however many hundreds of times, we've hit a repeat. I think that's the first time.
Nah,
is it?
Can't be.
I
can't.
Maybe
what was
not,
it again?
but is that evil doesn't hesitate. If
No.
anybody's listening to this,
No. It's evil doesn't hallucinate. I apologize. It doesn't. It doesn't see things clearly.
Don't cut it, editor. We're just gonna be one of us. Don't cut it.
It doesn't see things clearly, because it's surrounded by its own ego that is hallucinating, like Derek.
Yeah.
Right now.
I think Derek is hallucinating the EDH. I heard it as normal.
That's what happened. Okay, I was just being on theme. I wanted to get in line with the hallucinating topic and just make something up. All right, so let's jump into this topic today. So this is a fun one. One of the things that I think we hear a lot about in general, whether it's in content or even just talking to your friends, is threat assessment. Everybody's convinced that they are the best at threat assessment, and everybody they've ever talked to is terrible. They don't know what cards are good. They can't believe they even played Magic before. How did you blow that up? You're dumb. You're bad at Magic. These are all just things said to me during a normal game of Commander. So I wanted to review.
I don't apologize.
So that was all from yesterday. I'm just quoting said last night while we were playing Commander. That was all.
I'm gonna have to interject. Not everybody can recognize threats. People could be swallowed by a whole shark that don't know they're in danger. Like I've seen cases where everybody has like 3 legs and a person has literally like 20 permanents on the battlefield, and I was literally playing a board wipe and somebody countered it, and I looked them dead in the faces like, okay, I guess that's how it's gonna go. I guess that's how it's gonna happen. And then as soon as he countered, I was like, maybe he has an amazing play he's about to do. And he plays a land and past turn. I was like, okay, maybe he got something special. And the guy literally just swung out at him. He's like, okay, I guess I'm dead. And I was like, wait, what are we?
See, so that makes my point perfectly. In that, nobody either. Everyone's convinced everyone else is bad at threat assessment, or we've all had situations like that where it's like the threat assessment is so off that it like almost like ruins the moment of the game. Like all this is built up, everything's been epic, and then someone does something wild, and everything that happened before it doesn't matter. But the thing is, with that type of threat assessment, you can't affect that. You can't control that. When you're going into a game of Commander, you can't make your opponents have good threat assessment. You can try, and I've seen people try. The people will plead like their life is dependent on it for some of these, like, where is this going to target? What's this going to do? People get very in their feelings about it. But what you can control is kind of how you react to things. So what I want to talk about today specifically is when you're the threat. Because I think one thing about Commander is so much of it is about like the social board game aspect of it. It's almost like we're all putting on a performance at the table to entertain everyone else. You're building your deck, you're trying to do fun things, you're trying to show off something, and it needs to interact in a way. I really do. When people ask me, because people ask me kind of like, you look like a nerd, what do you do? And then so I'm always like, I play Magic. And then when they're like, oh, you do magic tricks, and I'm like, no, it's a card game. And when I try to describe it, typically I'm like, it's basically like you're playing a more like organized version of D&D with trading cards. And that's kind of how I view Commander, is that it is that collaborative session where everybody's kind of there to have that session together. And I think what energy and what attitude you bring to the table really like shapes that. And for a lot of situations, it's easy. When your deck's popping off and you're killing everyone, it's so easy to be social and happy and smiling and be like, oh, I didn't see you there. I'm sorry I just hit you for 40. Whoops. And you're just having the best time. You got your little wine glass over there. You're just having like, yeah, live, laugh, love, all that all the time. But when it doesn't feel like that, you still need to bring that energy. Sorry, can't you?
Yeah, first of all, you described Magic all the way wrong. First of all, Magic is basically disposable income, the game. Let's put that out there, all right? Second of all, let's call it really what it is. And second of all, I don't try to explain my hobbies to people. When people ask me what Magic is, it's like, you know what? I'm summoning the devil. That's all I'm doing. I'm summoning the devil. And then they leave me alone because then they ask me too many questions. Well, what's Magic? Well, why is this cardboard so expensive? How about you shut up and leave me alone? You know, we use the cards to collect diarrhea and fleeing at each other. How, you want to shake my hand now? Like, that's exactly what I don't want to ask 50 million questions. If you want, that's smartphones. We have smartphones. You can Google what Magic the Gathering is. I'm not going to sit here and take 30 minutes out my day to explain a game you don't give a damn about. No.
I am stealing that 100%. Anytime I'm just gonna say I summon the devil. And I summon the craziest look, and then
true story.
At that point, the thing is though, if the conversation continues at that point, then you got to be worried because if they're like, "Oh yeah, this is my shit," and it's like, "Okay, well maybe I didn't."
You know at that point, you know who the threat is. Yeah, at that point, you know who the threat is.
You call the cops and ask. You call the cops and ask them to check their basement. That's exactly what you do. True story. I was at one of the first companies I ever worked for. They had every month after our sprints, we'd do something where we had pretty much like a free half day. And then I came to find out that some of my other coworkers played Magic. I knew because they were deviants, and you know, anytime, and I saw them eating ranch dressing with apple sticks, so I kind of knew they was disgusting. So I was like, "Do y'all play Magic?" And they were like, "Yeah." So anyway, we was playing Magic, and I'll never forget. My manager walks in, he's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing in here?" I was like, "Minding my own business, Jeff. How about you do it?" I didn't say that out loud because I didn't want to get fired. But then he's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing in here? Huh? In your free time with your free afternoon?" And we was like, we playing Magic. He's like, "Oh, what's Magic? Like, what's Magic?" And I was like, "It's a card game. Summoning the devil, Jeff. We devil worshippers. This is a demon. We summoning them." And technically, I was not lying because I was playing the devil deck. So I wasn't lying. And then he kind of got the ooh look on his face and walked out. I was like, "Yeah, you know, you cheat. Yeah, uh-huh. You know, I know you cheat on your taxes."
At that point in time, Jeff was not the threat.
Exactly. So that wraps up this episode. That is threat assessment. That's how you do it. That's how you figure it out. I think we all learn something new from Ken every day, and that was one of the best things I've ever learned. In that I've never found a way out of those conversations, and now I know. So
side note about Jeff. Okay, so whenever I go to the bathroom, whenever I go to the bathroom. Yeah, Jeff gonna catch this work because Jeff was a whole asshole. But let me tell you something about Jeff. Jeff, when I go to the bathroom, I clock shoes. All right, whenever I go to the bathroom, I clock shoes. I know for a fact Jeff used the bathroom number 2 style, got up and walked out. So when they got the nerve, because they have potlucks at corporate events, they had the nerve to bring food from his house. And I was like, I know if you nasty in the bathroom, your kitchen nasty. You probably got pets on the counter when you making the chili mix. You think I'm gonna put any of that in my body? You are sadly mistaken, Jeff. Go fornicate yourself with a stick, Jeff.
Oh, so speaking of threats, we're on threat assessment and everything like that. I almost forgot what it was like to be like in an office. I have not worked in an office in a while since like everybody got sent home. So working from home, you forget how much assholes people are in offices. I had somebody, I kid you not, when I worked in a lab, that would reheat crab legs. This man had a tub full of crab legs, would put them in the microwave, reheat the whole thing, eat some, put it back in the fridge, and do that every day. One, bacterial wise, like you are growing a farm on these crab legs because it's reaching peak temperature. But two, that whole to smell. We didn't have a lot of space. Our break room was like smaller than this room I'm in right now, and it's just a threat assessment. If someone reheats crab legs every day, they are the threat. And
then sometimes people will leave like these sandwiches in their cars. I hate to go on this tangent, but people are nasty, right? We had somebody do that with fish. They brought fish from home and heated it in the break room. every chance I got, I would crop dust past his desk every chance I got, because the payback needed to be tenfold. And these weren't regular, like these were like these nacho Oreo farts too. You was gonna catch this work. His name was Mike. His name was Mike. And he would heat up fish from home in the break room and having this smelling like wet tube socks and used apple cores.
All right, so
back on topic. Yeah, so
I definitely love this idea of figuring out not just who's the threat, but also what to do when you're the threat. Because I feel like like you said, we have a lot of discussions about how to assess threats and what do you do when a person's a threat and how to bargain and how to plead and how to make deals. But what happens? What do you do when you're the guy that everybody, or guy or gal that everybody's gunning for? Like, how do we combat that? How do we strategize? What type of mentality do we need to have? What type of work do we need to keep under the table in case things got out of hand?
Exactly.
So let's jump into that. Like, what does it mean to be the threat when you're the threat? What does that look like for you guys?
So in bouncing off of that, what I wanted to kick off with, and kind of on that same topic, is I want to test our self-awareness, because this is kind of in the theme of the episode. I want us to talk about whatever deck that we play that we think is the biggest problem and gets there fast, and we know it, and we know when people target it, they're always right. We don't care how much we act like they're not right. We know they're right. And kind of self-assessing our own threat assessment in a way. So if y'all want to you could pick a deck, if you have a theme deck, whatever it is, and kind of get into that. And I'll start mine off just because I know right away, I love the Indoraptor. But every time I play that deck, I've learned over the course of the months playing it, I can never be salty or mad when someone kills it, because it is always the right decision. Because every time someone doesn't, the Lords of Chaos make it turn into them taking 25 damage to the face or sacrificing their only creature. And it's like, it is so aggressive, it's so unpredictable, and in the case of the way that deck plays out, gets there relatively fast, that, at least how I assess, and I would be curious if y'all agree, of the decks I play, that seems like the one that is like, deal with it, or there's just going to be bad consequences.
I don't think most of your decks are just horribly off the wall, except that Nezahal bull crap that you pulled last time. But I don't think any of them are offensive. I just think a lot of your decks are annoying. Like,
that's the best thing I can hear.
Your most annoying deck is that Transformer hubcap deck that you got that draws you like 50 cards every time you combat. Yeah, Flame Bastard.
Yeah,
that asshole. Because he just draws you so much cards and I'm like, I can't stop him. And then you put every damn sword on him like you eating at an Outback. And I was like, you don't know how much, out of all your decks, that's the one that pisses me off the most. Because I'm sitting there like, as soon as you cast it, I was like, damn, I need to get that. And I can never draw artifact removal. I have a deck full of removal. Whenever you play that deck, it's like it summons the ghost of you to move all my artifact removal at the bottom.
Said, do you have... No, it's accurate. I can't argue with any of that. Said, do you have a deck of mine? I was kind of going in the circle just to see like if any of these match up. Is there a deck of mine that you would say is threat number one? If you see it, you know that's what you got to deal with.
Definitely in line with Ken that some of your decks are just more, I want to say annoying just before annoying's sake. They're annoying for a reason. They're annoying because you seem to systematically somehow find what you need to make it annoying. In a 100 card deck, you manage to assemble all the annoying pieces.
The same cards. It's always the same cards that hit the damn battlefield. I was like, that is statistically impossible for you to keep doing. And you know what? Hold up. I'm sorry. Give me 2 seconds. And Just God's Will. If you cast Just God's Will one more time in my presence, I'm so sick. You know what? And you sit there and you talk shit about how you don't like Ristic Study because the people ask, are you paying the one? Are you paying the one? But your whole asshole will sit there and keep, how many cards do you have in your hand? Just cast the damn card and we'll let you know how many we got. But don't sit there and ask, how many cards do you have? How many cards do you have? I be wanting to choke the ever-love. I be wanting to pull your ghost out of your body and then choke the ghost.
I have good news for you, Ken. I got Jessica's Will and everything except Indoraptor. So it's the only deck you got to get asked.
So every
I
time.
cut it out of Cedrus. It's gone.
And then you do the same damn thing every time you about to cast it. Like you'll look at your hand and you'll look up. It's like, hold on. I need to recreate this in real time.
You said I got a Jessica's Will face. I have a face.
Yeah. Every time I can tell before you even do it because you be like, how many cards do you have? I'm like, about to just cast the goddamn card. Derek, just cast the card. As soon as you make the face, I'm like. That's why last time I was like, I have no cards in my hand. Derek, every time you ask that question, I have 0 cards in my hand. I don't care if I have my entire library is sitting in my hand. I will have 0 cards if ever you cast Just God's Will. I'm sorry for going on this rant.
So the specific deck, other than Indoraptor, that I would say, but like I said, it is mostly just annoying cards that show up. I think, what was the last one you built? It was you had a Titania deck. I was definitely annoyed by that one because it was just lands and elementals.
That one hasn't been played in a while for that reason. That deck pops off hard. If I was still regularly playing that would have been my like I'm the threat deck. It got so powerful. I haven't played it in a while because of that.
I literally don't know how to fight that deck. Like if I try to meta game and try to like throw you off your game, you will still find a way to come back, and I can exile your library. You still find a way.
So one thing that's really interesting that comes out of that though is all 3 of our picks were for very aggressive decks. So even me talking about Indoraptor for myself, that's aggro. Flame War is incredibly aggro. And Titania essentially turns into an aggro deck because you have that explosive. Like if you get, I mean, y'all have seen it sometimes like Lotus Cobras and stuff. You end up with like 10 elementals on turn like 5. It's ridiculous. So it's that kind of like, oh gosh, if I don't prepare immediately, there won't be time to react. And I want to see if that's a theme. So we'll keep going now. Ken, if you had to talk about a deck of yours that you view as your most threatening or your most, like when you know that you're going to get targeted when you play it.
Oh, the answer is all of them. But the ones it's literally all of them. But the ones at the peak that I know, once I play this commander, the clock literally the clock starts because once I get the mana, it's over. Zakama is number 1. That it's literally a clock. I tell people once I get, you literally have a clock to kill me because my whole deck is literally rampant to Zakama. So you start the clock. Zakama's number 1. Number 2 is Carl because Carl can literally turn 4 kill somebody with all the life gain triggers that I have.
Said we're gonna go over. Do you agree? Because the funny thing is, I'm a spoiler alert. Those are the exact 2 decks I was gonna pick for you. Carl, I had the order reversed. I had Carl as number 1, and then Zakama was number 2 because, like you said, every time you play the deck, you say this is a countdown to death.
This is
I'm letting you know.
And I never hide that fact. As soon as I play Zakama, I was like, look, the countdown starts.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Those 2 decks are the ones that's like, as soon as he shows up, pulls it out. I know we say kill Ken first a lot, sometimes as a joke, but definitely when those 2 commanders show up.
Yeah, like, I never hide. I never hide that fact.
When I see people hesitating when he pulls out those decks, I have a concerned look on my face. I'm not even concerned; it's more disappointed. I'm disappointed at the other 2 players at the table for not taking that threat seriously.
We've seen it happen so many times. We've seen it happen. Like Ken, you're. I don't mean to be too nice, but you're quite charming. So you'll sit at a table, be meeting new people. We have friends that maybe don't know you from like playing Magic, and they're like, "Oh, why would I hurt this guy? He seems so nice." And then like 10 seconds later, it's like you just peel the face off, and it's just like demonic. Like I'm killing all of you with fire. It's oh shit.
But here's the deal. I do that with other decks, yes, but I'm literally upfront about Carl as a combo because I'm like, if you let this go, it will kill you. And when I sit there and I'll ramp, and I was like, you're not gonna attack me? Okay, cool. I'll ramp again. You're not gonna attack me because people think, oh, it's 9 mana. I was like, I can get 9 mana by turn 4. Like, don't play games with me.
So we're going to put a pin in that, and I am going to circle back to that. That Zakama deck specifically is something I want to talk a lot about. Let's just jump over to you said real quick and get into what you view as your most threatening deck.
So surprisingly enough, I don't build commanders that people will off face see as threatening, specifically for this purpose. I don't like to be seen as the potential threat walking into a new situation or at a table. I want you to, you know how I build decks. It's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
I want you to kind of figure it out along the way what I'm doing. Because it's just like the way I like to build. But every now and then I do like to get a little bit spicy. So my number one threat deck is Kagemaru, First to Suffer. This is board wipe on a stick. And the funny part is I rarely actually use the sacrifice activation, where it basically you pay a black and you minus X all creatures on the board based on the number of cards in your hand. And is literally there just to scare people to not play their best stuff.
It's a
I get it out. I get it out as fast as I can. And I don't have the intention of sacrificing it because I'm playing also other, mid-range creatures that I just want to beat your face in with. So it's really an aggro deck, but I don't want you to know this is an aggro deck because I just want you to get to the point to try to figure out of when is he going to pop that thing or how many times do I need to remove it. And since I'm in mono black, I'm throwing it in the graveyard every time because I'm just bringing it right back.
So that's a really good answer. I haven't seen the Kagemaru in so long that that did not pop up into my head. Said yours was the most difficult by far for me when I was trying to think of for the three of us as far as like what I find is the most threatening. Because like you said, one, you always tweak your decks a lot, so I can never be sure what's going to happen. So whenever I'm at a table, and maybe this is just a good strategy out there, I'm very hesitant to target you first because so many times at a table I know something's a problem, and with you it's always a mystery. it's always mysterious. It's like I don't know. This could be the same commander I've seen. It could be a whole ass different deck. I wouldn't know. Like things could be swapped. I don't know what the strategy is. The only deck of yours that I will say that I will typically keep an eye out for, it's not necessarily target, but I know it's a problem, is the Blood Avatar. And it's also, I think it might be my favorite deck of yours, but I know if I'm playing a deck that cares about Voltroning things or a few big creatures, those creatures are not going to stick around if it gets to the point, once you get like 10 tokens out and you cast it 3 or 4 times, everybody's board's gone and we're all taking a crap ton of damage. So like that is the one where I think it's like, I have to take notice at the start to make sure my strategy plays into that. Because like if I'm playing, if I got 3 creatures and that's my whole strategy, like it's just not going to stick. Ken, do you have a pick?
The Blood Avatar is up there because it's not about the fact that it's not about the fact that it's dealing damage. It's the fact that it's on attack, and most of the time you can't stop that. By the way, I don't know why you haven't put Hidetsugu. I'm sorry, Ken, the dude who doubles attack triggers. Why you haven't put that in there? Because that will go destruct those
Ishin?
All day. Yeah, Kenshin, who spits on
2 heavens is one.
Yeah, sure.
Who spits? Oh,
I don't know. I don't know names.
So that was the thing. For a while, Blood Avatar could have potentially been my strongest deck in a sense of you need to watch out when I hit the table because I did try to make it a little less consistent by removing all creatures from the deck. So it was just I can only generate tokens every turn, and I have to sacrifice those tokens to the Blood Avatar. So it was a way to kind of slow me down to not be the archenemy every time. So I put self-imposing restrictions on some of my decks.
Because if you would have put that in, if you would have did that and put an extra combat, not a bunch of them, like an extra combat card in there, that deck would have.
Oh yeah. So, I know.
So
I've seen the potential of Blood Avatar, and I didn't like the person that I became when I did that. So to make sure I don't fall into all the madness and I don't lose all my friends, I dial it back a little bit. But I've been seeing some spicy things out there lately, and I'm about to ramp it back up because y'all getting out of hand, out of pocket with these new sets and these new cards and the way y'all building these decks and these precons. So can we get into where were you going with our picks with these Derek's? Like what type of not critique, but what type of evaluation are you getting so far?
So what I'll say is I think we passed way better than I expected because the one thing I was looking for was, one, did we have any agreement? Because I think the thing that can show a lack of self-awareness is if we all made picks and everybody else's reaction was like, that's what are you talking about? Or vice versa, when someone says your most threatening deck and you're like, oh no, that's harmless. What are you talking about? It never hurt anyone. Oh no. And that's usually like the table reaction most times. So that's kind of what I was kind of feeling out is how do we feel in relation to everybody else? And so it's nice to see that it kind of matches up in the sense of, okay, there is some sort of coordination there. I mentioned I wanted to come back to Zakama because I think it's a really good example. But one thing I wanted to make a point for real quick is we touched on this throughout, and we gave a lot of good examples of this. There's really two types of threats when you're threat assessing at a table. It's what is most threatening to me and what is most threatening in general. And I think the Blood Avatar is a great example, kind of to pivot off of that for that. If you're playing a Voltron deck, that is going to be threat number one because to you personally, it is the most threatening. Versus if someone sits,
and let's make sure we break down what the Blood Avatar does in case people are just listening.
Yeah, that would be super helpful for all these commanders. It would have been helpful if we were doing that. We will do that in the future. So the Blood Avatar is essentially it's one of the dual face cards from Strixhaven, isn't it?
Strixhaven. Yep.
Yeah, and basically the backside of the card is a whole bunch of mana. You cast it, and each opponent sacrifices a creature, and you create this Blood Avatar token. And this Blood Avatar token has a big ass. It's a 3. I think it's like 3/6, and on attack, it drains your opponents. They lose 3 life on attack. So
specifically deals 3 damage. So
it's damage. I'm sorry. So
yeah,
it's not.
I could have been throwing infect on these avatars.
You could be poisoning people out. And that's funny. Yeah. I did not have to look that up. That is not a card I've ever played, and I got most of the text right just because I've seen it enough times where I'm like, okay. It's one of the only Strixhaven cards I can actually tell you the text on. So,
well, first of all, it's a cheat card to begin with because it's not even a commander; it's a sorcery spell. It's cheating.
It's sitting on the back of a legendary creature.
It wants you to cast the damn legendary, not the sorcery on the back. So I guess we just play it brawl now.
So why do they put the sorcery there?
If you're not cheating, you're not trying. That's what I always say. So.
Exactly.
Well, so having said that, there's like a very specific threat assessment type deal there, but then there's also the general threat assessment. I think where people kind of get caught up sometimes is you have to understand both when you're playing a deck. If you're playing a deck that's targeted towards things, so we'll start with Blood Avatar. You seem to be pretty good at self-awareness with this, so this is not a critique. But like if you're playing Blood Avatar and someone at the table is playing Voltron, so let's say I'm playing Indoraptor. You have to be self-aware in the sense of I'm probably going to target you, and that's just part of the game. You got to embrace that. You can't get salty with it, even though it might not seem logical to you because you're like, yo, I'm not that threatening. I'm not winning the game. To that person, you're the most threatening. And it's the same way like being self-aware. You mentioned with the Titania deck. If I'm playing Titania and someone at the table goes, I forgot to put a strip mine in this deck, I need to attack you. There is a very specific thing to where even if I'm not popping off, to that person, there is unknown information or whether it's just their deck strategy. And I need to know that if someone's targeting me outside of if they're just giving me a dirty look and they're like, I think your face is messed up, I'm going to attack you. Okay, well then it's personal. Y'all can flip tables, fight, go behind an Arby's, spray Arby's sauce at each other, whatever needs to be done to resolve your differences.
That sounds gross as hell.
Everybody's got their habits.
Everybody does. That's right. That's right.
Too. Depends on what you're down for. So that's part of it is that self-awareness. But then the other end of the spectrum, Ken, you really touched on this, was the general threat. When you talk about Zakama, in that it's threatening to everyone. And I think that's a little bit easier to be self-aware on. Because, if you're playing Zakama, it doesn't matter what anyone's strategy is. You're about to blow that shit up. It's not going to matter where it goes. So it's kind of like that both ends of the spectrum. The next thing I want to get into specifically with examples and kind of what we're talking about is how do we deal with being that threat? Whether it's specific threats and it's a single player targeting us for whatever reason, because of our commander, because of this, or if we're just the general threat, whether it's because, and at this point we're still talking about commander choices and kind of pregame thing. We know coming into a game what our deck is going to do, what the things are. How do we mentally prepare for that? And do we play differently playing those decks? Ken, you look like you got something, so I'm going to throw it over to you first.
So when I play decks that I know is gonna make me the threat, I stand on my square. I walk in the elevator, face everybody, wait for the doors to close, and then I pass gas, and then look at them as they stare awkwardly at me. I know what I am. I'm not delusional in any way, shape, or form of what I'm coming to do. I'm coming to wreck shop, get out your car, and get ran over. That is the whole purpose of this deck. I'm not gonna politic with you. I'm not gonna barter. I'm not gonna bet. Like Thanos says, this is inevitable. It is coming straight. It's coming right for you. To quote my boy Jimbo from South Park, it's coming right for us. All thing you can do is try your best to survive. I mean, Jesus Christ. Beep, beep. Who got the keys to? I keep messing this song up. I swear to God, I don't know. but that's the whole point of this. Is just to like, I want to punch you. This is one of my most aggressive decks in your face, and it's like, do something about it. And if you want to sit there and beg and barter, I'm not going to listen to you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to hit you first.
And I love that, and I think that is, again, I think that adds to the table dynamic. That makes it. I know playing against some of those decks of yours, it's a whole lot more fun. And it's funny because I think some people have the idea that they can't build these busted decks in their play group. It might be too powerful. It might not be fun. It might be above the level. That isn't always true because of the social dynamic. If you come into a game, and it's harder with randoms, but if you're playing with your friends, if you come into a game saying, this deck's a whole problem, y'all better get ready, everybody needs to fight me, that's going to be such a different game socially than if you like, oh, it's just a new deck, I don't know if it's good or not, I don't know, it might be fine, or maybe, and then you just blow everyone off, like just out, just everyone's just dead on turn 4. It's like, well then, now none of us had fun. We didn't see this coming. You pretended like it wasn't going to happen. So that makes such a big difference. Because yeah, if you tried to lowball every time you played Zakama, I probably would hate that deck. Same with Carl. If every time you played Carl, you're like, I don't know why you're blowing my stuff up. Oh no. Those would be miserable to play against, but they're fun to play against, and it's literally just because of how you handle it. So that's a good point.
But my thing is, one of my things I hate is half-ass threats. And it's like commanders that you know is powerful, and then it's like something where you got to look at the top, like something that mills through the top of your library, and you can find the pieces, but you know it's like 95% guaranteed, but we got to sit here and go through the motion of you going through the top cards of your library and revealing stuff to see if you do it. I'm not a big fan of that stuff because I'm like, you know you have the win. You know you have it. But we got to sit here and pretend like there's a chance that you might miss it. I was like, no, just if you're going to kill us, get it over with so we can move over to the next game. But now we got to sit here. Oh, did I get it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get it this time. Oh, I didn't get it this time. And I'm sitting there like, no, just kill me and get it over with.
No, that time equity is a really good point, and that's something I'm going to get into in a couple minutes, and we are going to circle back to that. But yeah, time equity has a big kind of piece of the saltiness and all this. But Seb, what do you got?
Yeah, and kind of leaning into the whole time equity as just being a part of the discussion of what I'm thinking about here is that, like Ken said, just be intentional with your threat. If you are going to be the threat, because it can also help move the game along a little bit faster and get help with your decision making as well. Like if you just lean into it, say I'm going to wreak havoc and wreck everybody's day until you stop me. Just go for it. Granted, you do have to do some extra thinking to protect yourself as backup situations, but I mean, you know what's in your hand. Sometimes you may remember what's in your deck, depending on how familiar you are with your deck. You know what the answers are. You know what can save you in certain situations, or get your reps in so you can, when you're playing these Archenemy decks, know what your limitations are. Know how far you can push the threshold, how far you can go before someone can remove this or this, and then you're done. So that can kind of help speed things along, and also it also helped with you knowing where you are as far as you being the threat. So like, get some more reps in with your deck, understand what your limitations are, and understand how far you can push that deck. I know how far I can push my deck. Most of my decks, depending on how often I play them. I recently built Quorum, I believe, Coram. This is Grick. Yeah, this is Junded 1. Came in a new Modern Horizons 3. This guy is a house. I didn't realize how, like, every time I played it, I found something new about this guy because it was just more text just kept appearing on the card. Like, whoa, where'd that line come from? I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I could benefit from that. Basically, this guy gets big based on the biggest power of any creature in any graveyard. When he attacks, everybody mills the top card of their library. And then the bottom ability says that you can play a land or a spell from among any card that's been milled during your turn. That's 3 different things on one commander, but it leans in such heavy directions where, depending on where you push it, on the first build, I milled a player down to 1 card in their library. I didn't even know I could do it. And I was like, wait, here we go. Okay, I think I like what I'm seeing here.
I want to back up to something that you were saying before, but yes, I don't there just to be transparent, there are deception elements in this game. and
sure.
there are and hiding elements about your deck, so you can, and that's perfectly fine. Now, when and especially, but when you're the threat, my biggest issue is when you hide stuff from people who don't know, and what I mean by beginner players, because if there are beginner players out there who are new to Magic or who haven't been playing as long, like since we've been playing this game for a while, when we see certain cards, we know what's coming. And my biggest pet peeve is that if there's a new person in the play group who's trying to figure stuff out, and you want to sit there and undersell because this person might have something to interact with you, but you want to undersell to this person who's new so you can take advantage of their naivete. And I'm like, well, stuff like that I don't like.
Yeah, I want to speak on that because I know this is veering a little bit from a topic just a little bit, but these are people who are the threat and are trying to throw the perception off that they're not the threat, but they're also taking advantage of the newer players, trying to create those, either those bargainings or those, it would just say bargaining, like, hey, it's not me. I think honestly it's that guy over there. Like, just kind of throwing off the scent of the trail when everyone else at the table can clearly see what's going on. So now it turns into this half of the table is trying to convince that newer player that you're the threat, and now you're just lying. And that's a whole different territory of Commander. And generally in my play groups and in my tables, I'm open, I'm honest. I've seen it best, and it's better for newer players when you're explaining to them what the situation is. Like, hey, this is the situation, and you can deal with it however you feel benefits you. And that's typically how I like playing the game. Like, you probably can't see all the pieces, all the machinations of what's available on the table. And I may even tell you what I could or could not have in my hand. But I'm setting up the scenario, now action. And I like those games.
And for the people who do that, if that's how you want to play Magic, that's fine, because we know you spend your afternoon stealing candy from babies and kicking the crutches for all disabled people. So that's your thing and that's your kick and that's what you went to. So I'm not even gonna stop it. But that's not how I like to play. If somebody asks me legitimately what's the threat, I'd be like, yes. And they'd be like, what's the piece? Well, this can destroy your artifacts. This card right here can go make you, are you wearing clean underwear? Doesn't matter, because you're going to need to get new ones. That's what this card does. And this one, your actual life is going to go down to 0. Not the game, your actual life. So yeah, you might want to do something about this, and this in that order.
Get your affairs in order.
Yeah. Seth, you kind of provided the perfect transition, because I think the point you made is a really good one. In that there's a big difference between, because a lot of this episode is about that self-awareness of being the threat. And there's a whole big difference between what you're bringing to the table, being the threat, versus what happens in the game. The analogy I always like to do is like my dream Commander game is everyone has pool noodles and is trying to beat each other to death in the most efficient way possible. And you bring that pool noodle and that's your deck. Coming into the game, you've underpowered it. You've made decisions to where you don't. But the issue is when you get 3 people that bring pool noodles and someone has the Guts Greatsword from Elden Ring, and it's just like, oh, I'm up today. That's all. And then all of a sudden, those pool noodles it doesn't matter how you use them. And then all of a sudden, that person who has that giant Greatsword, by the way, is like, oh no, this is a pool noodle. I don't know what you guys. This is literally just it's a weirdly shaped pool noodle. I promise. And like you mentioned with the lying and stuff, because I think if everybody gets on that same page, so if everybody's playing decks of a similar range, similar types of cards, at that point, my eyes, all bets are off. That's where it's like you can do anything as efficient as you want, as cutthroat as you want, talking about making deals, politicking. Because at that point, everybody's on a level playing field. But I think players hold the individual responsibility coming into a game. Like you mentioned newer players. If you see someone with a precon or a commander you've never seen before that's kind of new that might not be good, or someone who's just playing a deck that they just put together, and you're coming in with your Zakama or Indoraptor or something, there's some personal responsibility you have to be like, okay, this is not the game for me to politic, or this is not the game for me to lie and undersell something. Instead, Ken, you made a good point. When you cast a card, you extra explain it. I know I do that a lot when I used to play Titania all the time. Greater Good is a card that people who've played Magic for forever know it's one of the most busted cards in Magic ever. It's incredibly powerful. But I know when I started playing, I didn't understand how good Greater Good was. I was like, why do I want to get rid of my creatures? Yeah, I'm drawing cards, but I'm discarding a bunch. I don't get it. And in Titania, whenever Greater Good hit the battlefield, for whoever's not familiar, Greater Good says you sacrifice a creature, you draw cards equal to power, and discard 3. In that deck, if that card resolves and stays, I just win. There's very few games that I don't just win that turn or next turn. And I made sure every turn, okay, this got cast. If anybody has removal, this card will win me the game. And especially for newer players and things like that, if you're bringing those power level of cards into a game, it's your responsibility to explain them. And like said, like you're talking about deception. Deception is necessary for sure. So, for example, if you're playing, what the hell was that card you played last night with the lion on it?
Surprise deployment, baby. Put 3 and a white. It's an instant. Put a non-white creature card from your hand onto the battlefield and bring it back to your hand at the end of turn.
I'm still not convinced it's real. It did work last night. But if you're playing a card like that is deception. That nobody sees that coming. It's not a generic staple that's just like leagues more powerful than what everyone else is doing, so it's not fair. There's ways to be tricky, to deceive and all that without being an asshole, essentially. And that's kind of where that realm lies. And so much of it, and that's what makes Commander so great, but also so difficult, is that you have to have that personal responsibility to make those decisions. So, you got it, Ken.
Yeah, because I've seen assholes do that before where I'll be in a game and then they know they cast the obvious combo piece that can just go off at that moment. And then and at some point I've started to learn to recognize when people start to stutter or their voice starts getting weird, they about to do something real janky or real messed up. So they'll cast it and then they'll put it on the table and then try to go to their step. I was like, hold on, wait a minute. Let me look at the card. And then I'll read the card. I'll be like, okay, no, I'm going to go ahead and counter this, or I'm going to cross and grip it so you can't use it. And then they'll sit there like, well, no, because it resolved. I was like, no, you didn't give anybody priority to do anything. You just literally tried to rush to it so you can get the victory, which is a real asshole, very asshole-ish. So I'm going to need you to chill out. And to what you said, it ain't wet noodle fight. To me, you ever heard of no dodgeball?
I said pool noodle, not wet noodle, but it's the same idea. I have seen dodgeball, yes.
No dodgeball.
Oh, I don't know what no dodgeball is, though.
So basically, it's basically where they sit against the wall with their hands behind their back and they can't move. Well, pretty much it's people aiming for each other digitally. So all they do is throw the ball as hard as they can, try to hit the.
I can't believe I'm about to make this analogy, but Ken, it sounds more like you're talking about CEDH players.
Yeah, exactly. That's all CEDH players do is they have steel toe boots kicking each other in the private parts. That is literally the whole game.
So there's a game. Did y'all ever play Sting Pong?
What?
Maybe it called it something different.
Maybe it's back from back when I was in high school. Me and my friends were clearly not very bright. We loved to play this game called Sting Pong, and basically it's ping pong. But whenever you lose, like a set or whatever, we usually do either 1-on-1 or 2-on-2. Whenever you lose a point, you have to pull your shirt up over your head. And they get to hit the ping pong ball as hard as they can at you, and it would just leave welts everywhere. So every time you lose, you just get the ping pong ball just hit at you full speed, and you pulled it over your face so you wouldn't get hit in the face, and just literally welts all over your body. And because you couldn't see, it was like terrifying because it was just like, we played Sting Pong like every weekend in high school. Shout out to Berg and Winter, y'all are for some reason listening to this. That is so much fun.
Doing a firing squad for no reason.
Exactly. At this point, just go outside and fight. But what we used to do is like tape towels and wet the tips to just be popping the hell out of each other. Only rule is you couldn't hit nobody in the ding dong. Well, of course, they be sack tapping people for real.
It just sounds like you got hit in the nuts a lot, Ken. That's all I got from all these stories.
That explains his play style.
Exactly.
What does that explain? All right, so I want to transition us to our last topic now, kind of as we're pulling through this, and we talked a lot about pregame threats, and that's kind of what has been the focus. But I want to talk about if there's any differences in the way we handle maybe being a surprise threat, because this is something else. So I will say, in general, people have somewhat of a level of understanding whether they say it or not, in if they have a threatening deck they're bringing to the table. But regardless of what deck you bring to the table, you can become the threat. And the example I'll give is, last night we were playing Commander because we like to do that. And Sid, I was playing the Food and Fellowship precon, the Lord of the Rings, Frodo, Sam precon, unchanged, literally 100% precon. And at one point, I was I think I ended up winning the game. I was the problem at one point. I didn't even understand what was happening because I didn't know what most of the cards did, but I was the problem. So regardless of pregame, nobody would have looked twice at this deck, but at some point it was a problem. And what I want to talk about, and I find those times the hardest to handle socially, in the sense of if I'm playing a deck, whether it's underpowered or fair or whatever, and I'm getting to the point where I might win, and maybe it's a deck that doesn't win much, and you're finally almost there, and you think it might happen, and then all of a sudden everyone recognizes that and starts removing all of your pieces, it's just like, no, like I put all this work. Like that's, I think, where I know I get the saltiest, because then it's like they're doing the correct thing. They're not wrong for doing it, but you worked so hard to get there, and you're not at an advantage. You're not at any of this. And I kind of want to talk about if we have ways to, one, how do we handle that? Do we handle it well or not? And two, do we have any strategies for dealing? Because I think some of the other stuff might be easy to learn. If you're a seasoned player and you're bringing a Corvold or a Zakama, you're going to learn that you're a problem and it's just part of the game. But how do we deal with these surprise threat situations and not get salty if people correctly threat assess and remove all your stuff?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can get clarity. Are you asking what do we do if we find ourselves accidentally the threat, or if we're the threat and somebody accidentally takes out of one of our pieces? Like, just
No, you're good.
Clarity.
Yeah, for clarity. So basically saying when you accidentally become the threat, you're playing a deck that is fair otherwise, and especially if it's a deck that might be underpowered. Like I was talking about playing a precon. If you're playing a deck where you don't win a lot, and then all of a sudden it does what it needs to do, and you end up in this hugely threatening position, what is your strategy? Because I know I'll start it off. I act different in that if I'm playing a deck I know is the threat and it becomes a threat, I am incredibly transparent in telling you, yeah, you need to remove this. You should probably remove this. I'll give you a whole breakdown of what's on my board in detail with kind of the strategy I'm thinking to make it a more fair game. Because I know not only am I popping off, but this deck might be a little too strong for where we are. The other, it's more difficult for me, and I'll use, again, playing that precon as an example. If I'm playing a precon and I'm in a threatening situation where I might be able to win a game, I don't feel as forthright with wanting to tell you everything about how the interactions go if it's any hidden information. I don't want to give you extra information because it feels like I'm already playing at a disadvantage. The issue then that kind of spirals into is if people do correctly threat assess, they know what to remove, and you get all your pieces blown up, kind of how do you react to that? Because for me, we talked about super easy, it seems like for all three of us, to play that comic book villain. To be like, I'm the problem, I'm playing the scariest deck, let's see what happens. But yeah, how does that change when it's a surprise or you're at a disadvantage before that point?
Yeah, so I would just say at that point, if you're the surprise archenemy, surprise villain, whatever, it's still a matter of not necessarily leaning into it, but at that point in time, you've kind of earned your position. You've flown under the radar just enough to, you haven't been the threat, and now you're finally in a position where you are the threat. So at that point in time, you've earned the right to try to, not the right. You've earned the position to try to win the game without feeling bad about it, because you're just playing how things naturally played out. You weren't keeping any information from anyone up until that point, and then going forward, now you're the focus and the attention. So now it's up to everyone else to kind of try to see what's going on your board. I remember, I died to this deck, but I think you were in might have been single digits life. I can't remember if I got you there, because I remember you did gain a bunch of life at one point, and then try to take you down from there. But it was the fact that there was just a lot of things going on in your board, and I couldn't keep track of it, like food and one ring, not the one ring. The ring has tempted you, so I don't know what those. Tempted. Yeah, I don't know what the second and third ability of the ring tempting you is. I don't even know who was your ring bearer by the end of the game. Like, I just totally clocked out. I had to remove one of your creatures. I think I was about to lose one of my removal spells from my hand from a will effect. So I sourced the Plowshares, like 2/2 creatures of yours. I was just like, I guess that's the biggest threat on your side of the board. I got to get rid of something.
And I guess just bouncing off of that real quick before I throw it over you, Ken, I think you made a good point as far as like what information you have available. I think that's one of the things I'm not the best at this, but to keep in mind, people only have the information they have. So if you're playing that deck, they don't know its version history, its win history, its entire existence history. As far as they're concerned, if they might have seen the deck twice and you're in a threatening position, you're in a spot to win. And I think it's one of the kind of the battles you have to have internally to not get salty. They don't know. Maybe you've been trying to win for this deck for a year and you never won. They don't know that. So if they do remove your stuff, it's not personal. Like you said, you just blew up a random 2/2 because it's like something needs to get removed. I can't, in that situation, I can't get salty and worried because I need to try to basically realize if I was in your shoes, I might do the same thing. So it does complicate it. Like you said, when all the cards aren't known, this and that, it's frustrating for everyone at the table in that case, because if you don't remove the right thing, someone else might get frustrated. But then if you remove the right thing, I might get frustrated. And that's where it's just sometimes we're not all professional. None of us are professional Magic players. We're not on the pro tour. We don't, and especially even if we were, Commander is so damn complicated with how many interactions there are. everyone, no matter how good of a Magic player you are, you're going to misplay a few times in a game. Like, that's just the way it works. And I think not getting upset at people for that should just be like a base level thing. And so I think you're right. I think it's just a matter of, so you just got to do what your deck allows you to do, and you can't get upset about it. You can't get it. Things just happen. You're going to play another game afterwards. It's not a big deal. I didn't mean to cut you off though, Ken. I'll throw it over to you.
No, you're fine. So basically, all I was going to say is this. At the end of the day, the prime directive of this game is to win. I know people are here to have fun and all that stuff, but the general consensus is each deck is trying to win. It's just a power struggle. That's what it is. If you find yourself accidentally in a position where you just happen to be the threat, like said, lean into it. You're doing what the deck is supposed to do, especially if the deck doesn't win a lot. Why get to the point where the deck is about to succeed just to pull back? No, stay on the throttle, because then I've seen it regret wash over everybody's face. Like, I could have done this. I could just do it. And when it's and think about the consequences later, because okay, you win, then what? Scoop up, go to the next game. And when it comes to people like blowing up pieces that you need in that point, I mean, say la vie, that's what it is. Because if you was in a reverse situation, you do it to them. And I've had that happen to me where I'll put threats on the battlefield and I'll put a bigger threat on the battlefield. Like, yeah, blow up the big threat, and then they accidentally blow up the inconsequential one that nobody really pays attention to, and they do it by accident. That's the one that gets me. I'm like, you lucky bastard, you bitch. You lucky bitch. If you would have blew that 1 mana artifact up, I would have wrecked your life, you bitch.
Yeah, Ken and Derek are definitely known for removing just the random pieces that I might need. Like, I'm not saying anything because I'm not trying to appear like the threat. I'm trying to be the threat maybe 2 or 3 turns down the line. And you take me off my game plan by removing something just to remove it, like with the decimate. Is it decimate that hits all the permanents?
Yeah, all the different types, the land, enchantment, your hopes and dreams, the creature.
Yeah, it's like here comes Ken. Like, I need to get rid of an artifact. Get rid of that random artifact over there.
It's always so much more insulting when it's just an offhand comment. It's not even the thing being targeted. It's literally just like, oh, I need an extra target. Screw it, that's what it is. And it's like, that's my hope. I
just need a random one. I guess I'll take the 1 mana drop that you did over there. Sure, I'll take that one, because your main focus is the big ass creature or the big ass enchantment. And I guess I'll just take that one because it's there. And you like, you mother, do stuff on your chest until your heart caves in.
But I think it's a good example, and I think it's the takeaway from today's kind of episode is going to be those two things. And I think if everybody found ways to embrace being in those two roles, whether it's a threat from the start and everybody's gunning for you, or your deck does it think, because at this point in Commander, we've talked about this in a previous episode, but games have gotten to the point where almost everyone gets to be in a threatening position over the course of a Commander game. There's so much card advantage, so much ramp in every color combination, and especially if you're playing a Commander from the last 5 years, your Commander's probably giving you so much of an advantage over a game that you're going to be a threat at some point. So everyone's going to get to, and back in the day, that was not the case. I remember, again, I didn't start playing that long ago, but in the 2016, 2017, 2018 with Commander, there were plenty of games where people just did nothing. Like, oh, I didn't hit my 7 card draw spells available in red this game. I don't get to do anything. I don't play Magic. That was a real thing. So because that's not the case, you can very comfortably say, at some point I'll be in this position. How do you embrace it? How do you make it more fun? And just make sure you bring everybody along with you. Because the thing is, if you give that energy, and I think y'all have seen this a lot, especially when we play with random people, we don't really see a lot of saltiness when we play with random people at conventions and stuff. And I think part of it is the fact that they're afraid because they know what we're about. And it's that they know that we're bringing. See,
I will happily take this out. I will happily take this away from the table. We can take this outside all you want to. Don't let a fake card give you a real ass whooping. I was 1,000% on that one. You run that mouth if you want to. I'm from the show me state. I'll show your ass.
So also true, but it's also, I think part of it's the energy we bring in that when our stuff's getting destroyed, when we're being threatening, we're all messing with each other. It's contagious, and we see and you'll see other people catch on to that. And so it's really important, whether it's that someone blows up your Soul Ring for no reason or what you think or this or that, take it in stride, and it's going to create a more fun game. So I want to have closing thoughts. Ken, do you have any closing thoughts before we bring it to the close? Kind of on just this whole concept of embracing that threatness.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing, especially when you're the threat, just be the threat. Don't hide. Don't cower away from it. Stand on it, and I'm pretty sure you'll feel better about yourself. You know what? You just slap everybody at the table and just look at them in the eyes like, what you gonna do? Not literally. I don't want y'all ain't got enough bail money for an actual assault. But you know what? I mean, if you need to stomp on some people's hopes and dreams, just do it. Put some powdered sugar on it and a little bit of almond milk and eat it up.
Thank you for the almond milk reference. I appreciate that. Sad. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say try to definitely take it in stride and try not to get past the petty factor when people start blowing up your things, when you become the threat, because this is what the game is about. It's everyone's trying to build up their kingdom and their empire, and then other people are trying to bring you back down to parity to kind of make things a little bit more level and equal, so everyone's on at least the same playing field until someone else can take off again. I've seen it. We've all seen it. The longer games go, everyone gets a chance to be the threat, but at the end of the day, it's about who's the last threat. So it could take some deal making along the way, but don't do it in a way that's putting newer players or newer Magic learners at a disadvantage for future games. Try not to be that selfish with it, and just the more honesty, the more relaxed and petty, as we like to preach on this channel, you are going about your games. We think the more fun you can have in these casual situations. So embrace the threat. I would say for everyone out there, try to build a deck where you are the threat. And I've heard some people say that they all have like maybe one high-powered deck because people in their play group or people in their LGS bring those every now and then, and they want to be able to try to stand up and compete too. So I would say just lean into it as far as having that high-powered deck as strong and push it as strong as you can, so you can actually see where your limitations are and where you are as a player in these types of games as well.
So yeah, I guess my closing thoughts, y'all said it. Kind of most of what I wanted to say already. Y'all said it best about embracing it. Again, I think my closing sentiment is treating it like that D&D game, like that collaborative experience, and making sure that you're self-aware of what's going on. One of the cool things that I've kind of done to try to get myself less salty over time is that if every game went like you wanted it to, and when you're the threat and everybody did what you wanted and you just won, it wouldn't be fun. Like if you had like a 70% win rate in Commander, you'd be miserable. Because it's like, it's not even a challenge at that point. Like I'm someone who loves like Dark Souls and stuff like that. If I could just one-shot everything, I wouldn't even play the game. Like there would be no point. There's no challenge. Your brain doesn't have to do anything. So like, it's good that people stop you. It's good that people blow up your stuff, because it just makes it that much more satisfying when it works. And so I think that's just something, if you use that mindset and realize like when it does work, it's going to feel that much better. It just makes the whole experience better for you. But Ken, you were looking at me like you had another, like a really good, really on topic point to make.
And I will say one more thing. If we don't take anything away from this episode, make sure that you always remember, stop heating up horrible food in communal areas. I swear to God, leave that stinky stuff in your house. It's cool. You can have your house smell like a dumpster pit if you want to. But the second you put something with allspice inside of that microwave and you turn the heat to high, we have a problem.